And ready to go. We'll get started. Just welcoming the rest of our families coming in. Welcome to junior night. It seems like just a short time ago that we were meeting with all of you for sophomore conferences, and so goes the time. It won't be long before we'll be meeing for graduation purposes. So, I'm Jody Devine, one of the counselors here at the high school. I work with students with the last names of LU through SH. I'd like to take a quick minute to have you turn to the back of the room. We've got Mr. Pete Newton, who is also one of our counselors, and he works with students with GI through LO. And I see Rose, Pete, if you want to wave back there, Pete. And then I see Rose just walking in. Rose, she's in the back there. She works with students with the last name of SI through Z. And then we have Jenny Osterheis, who is out with our other events, with our other people coming in out in the Commons. And so she'll be available afterwards for that. So our main goal for tonight is that you and your children, our students, are able to walk out tonight knowing what the next steps they need to take, regardless of what path they take after graduation. We want you to feel confident that you know if you're going to choose a 4-year, a 2-year, a private school, the military, a job. What are my next steps, no matter what my path? So that's what is on our agenda for tonight, and that's our goal. To help us accomplish that goal, we're going to start this evening in this room with a panel discussion with experts. I'm going to call you ladies experts, from several post-high school systems. So we have a Wisconsin Technical Schools representative, a Wisconsin 4-year representative, and a private school representative up here. After our panel discussion, we'll have information presented to you about the financial aid process, scholarship process, and the all-important ACT test information for our juniors. So hopefully all of that, if we stay on time, will take us to about 7:30. Around that 7:30 time, we're all going to take a break and move out to the Commons, where you can meet with military people, apprenticeship, the job center, all of the ladies up here, and many others out there, where you can meet individually with them, take information specific to the path that your child might be interested in. You might find that after the panel discussion you've got enough information, and that's wonderful. You're welcome to leave then. But if you'd like to actually get some handouts from some of the sources I just mentioned, you'll be able to do that kind of in a fair type style as you need and as your time allows out in the Commons. So that'll happen at about 7:30. So to get us started, we're going to start with the panel discussion. And a quick introduction, we have Raven Schmidt. She's from our Wisconsin Technical School System. We have Kathy Paul from the Wisconsin Private Colleges, and at the end is Allison Ward from our UW systems. And we have 3 key questions that we've asked them to respond to, and they'll grab their microphones now at this time. And we'll just start with Raven, and then we'll kind of move down for those questions. So one of the key questions we wanted answered for you tonight is to have you tell us generally about your educational system, including information about general locations, general sizes, and types of degrees offered, as well as general cost of attendance. Okay, Raven, you're up.
Okay, so representing the Wisconsin Technical College system, we actually have about 16 different tech colleges within the system in Wisconsin. So we are North Central Technical College. We are home based here in Wausau with 6 of our own locations, but the other ones are spread throughout the entire state. So we try to cover the district for the entire state regardless of what high school students attend. So if there's a program that you're interested in, we might not offer it. Fox Valley, Chippewa, or Mid-State might offer that program you're looking into. And your dual credit classes will also transfer to any tech college, which is super cool. So the typical size, I know like at MTC, our typical class size is not going to be more than 21 students per class. So it's pretty small, and you get that one-on-one interaction with your instructors. Different types of degrees. So we start with certificates, which are going to be anywhere from like 16 weeks, which is 1 semester, or maybe even a year, but it's just a certificate. And then we go into tech diplomas, which are either a year or less. And you can get jobs with those as well. The only tech diploma we have that is 2 years is going to be machine tool. And then we go into kind of our hard hitters, which would be our associate degrees, and those are the ones that we have transfer agreements with four-year colleges for, and they are straight articulation agreements. Our typical cost is going to be about $150 per credit, so typically one college class is going to be anywhere from 3 to 4 credits, so we're looking at $450 or more, but no more than $620, and that's only for those 4 credit classes.
Thank you.
I'll try to be brief regarding the private colleges. So I represent an association of 24 non-profit colleges and universities in Wisconsin. So they all offer 4-year degrees. They range in size from 750 undergraduates to as many as 7,000 undergraduates at Marquette. So some of the schools, they're all listed on a guide that I have at the table out front, which you're welcome to come and receive. But the closest might be Ribbon College or Lawrence University to this area. But we range in locations as far south as Beloit, where Beloit College is located, to the west at Viterbo University. All the way north in Ashland, Wisconsin, we have Northland College, and then to the east, there are schools in the Green Bay area, quite a few concentrated in Milwaukee, and Edgewood College in Madison is one of these 24 schools. So within those 24 colleges and universities, there are over 435 majors that students can choose, and it ranges from A to Z. And in the handouts, of course, at the table, if you're interested in any of these private colleges, you can come see me. If you have a specific major that you're interested in, they're all listed in the guide, and it indicates which institution you might want to attend. If you're interested in science or accounting or it's soup to nuts, really. And as far as cost goes, there's an average. It depends on which school you're looking at, but the average cost can be up to $32,000. But what we are able to do is offer, these colleges and universities can offer some pretty extensive grants and scholarships to help bring the average financial aid package down to $27,000. And this is for 1 year, I should have said. So what's exciting about the private college opportunity is, depending on your own personal family situation, what grants you might be eligible for, and which school you're thinking about attending, you can bring your average cost to under $5,000 per year. So you can come see me about those details as well. What am I forgetting here? Anything else?
About average size of class and maybe overall campus.
Thank you. What's also interesting within the network of these private colleges is depends on what you're interested in. Of course, we want to make sure that you're happy in the college that you select. You're going to spend 4 years there potentially. So you may be interested in a school in a rural area. Well, there's colleges and universities like Northland College I mentioned, that's all the way up the most northern part of the state. That's in a city, but it's a smaller city. There are Ripon, for instance, is in a much more rural, smaller community, and there's suburban opportunities. Edgewood College in Madison it's in the city, but it's to a little bit outside, more in the suburban area of Madison. So it really depends on you and what you're interested in. If you're interested in a smaller school, I mentioned that 735 student size all the way to 7,000 or 8,000 at Marquette. So that's really another personal preference that we're happy to talk to you about. Boy, I'm interested in a small school, but I want to be in a big city. That kind of combination. So those opportunities are going to be there for you at the private colleges.
All right, then for the UW system, we have 26 different options for students, and so there are going to be 13 two-year options and then 13 four-year options. Now the big change that happened as of July 1 was that we did a full restructure of the UW system. So now all of those two-year campuses are now a part of a four-year campus. So you've probably seen UW Marathon County is now UW Stevens Point at Wausau. UW Marshfield Wood County is now UW Stevens Point at Marshfield. And then other campuses as well throughout the rest of the state many of them have kept their names or have just kind of added the new four-year, again, attached onto that name as well. One of the big things that we wanted to kind of work with in this restructure is the assistance of transferability.
We were hearing from a number of our students that as I'm going from a 2-year to a 4-year, it's getting a little difficult for things to transfer. Well, even though it is now tied to a 4-year, that does not mean that you have to go into that 4-year campus. So with that, you're able to kind of go and work then with the campuses to make sure that things are transferring much smoother. And another thing that we're hoping to bring in the years to come will be some of our bachelor degrees to those 2-year campuses as well. Right now our 2-year campuses only have the associate's degrees on those campuses, but this is one of the bigger goals that was set forth throughout the UW system when we started to look at this restructure. Within the UW system, you are going to find campuses like Madison and Milwaukee that are going to be upwards of over 10,000 students. I think Madison is actually ranging almost closer to 20,000 students at this point when you're looking at undergraduate and master's and doctoral students on the campuses. So you're going to see larger campuses like that. You're going to see some mid-sized campuses, kind of like Oshkosh and UW-Stevens Point, where you're going to find upwards of 8,000 students. And then you're going to find those small 2-year campuses where you may find 500 or maybe even only 1,000 students on those campuses. So it's really nice to be able to kind of look at this wide range of the things that are offered for you as a student and to understand what am I most comfortable with. Making sure that you do find that right fit, going and saying, okay, am I going to be successful in a large lecture hall of 100 plus students? Or do I need that more average size of 25 students in the classroom or even smaller than that? So you're able to find those ranges within the UW system, which is very unique and is a great asset to our students. With that as well, you are going to find a very wide range of costs, so we don't really have a set average cost when you're looking at the UW system either. And it's also going to vary also kind of just based on where you are going. Throughout the entire UW system, you are required to live on campus for your first 2 years if the campus is able to have that space. So that's going to be one of the bigger costs as well that you may see. So maybe staying a little bit closer to home where you don't have to be an on-campus student may be the best fit for you to save a little bit on that cost as well. So things like that are things that you'll kind of go and think about. One really great tool that we have for the entire UW system as well is called UW Journey. Now this is an app that you can download right on your phone. Students, I know you're on your phones all the time, so why not use it to start your college search as well? So when you're on the UW Journey app, you can actually, just like you were to go and select your next laptop or the next iPhone when you're comparing side by side, you can go and put colleges in the UW system side by side to see what is it that I'm looking for. You can sit down and say, I've been a part of Student Government Association here, and I want to continue that when I'm on a college campus as well. You can select that as an option, select your major, select how many hours away you want to be from home and things like that, to be able to kind of go and look at those things and compare those campuses side by side. And that's where you'll also be able to do those costs and things like that right there on the app.
Thank you. Next question, this one's going to be a little bit shorter. When you're thinking about your student body, if you ask your student body in general, what is one thing they really appreciate about the learning system, about the technical schools, about the private schools, and about the Wisconsin four-year public schools? What is one thing that seems to come across you when you're working with your students?
There's so many.
I said one. I got the timer going.
Whoa. Okay. I would say the number one thing is our hands-on learning. So, I'll be brief, I promise.
Okay.
So we go out and we actually ask employers from this area, what do they want? What skills do you want them to learn? So we teach you, whether you're in health, business, tech and trades, no matter what it is, public safety, even agriculture, we teach you those skills, but we also teach you soft skills, so that when you go in to be employed, even with that 2-year degree before taking advantage of a transfer agreement, you're able to get hired above somebody who may or may not have a bachelor's degree or even that master's, which I think, I'm an alumni of NTC, and that's exactly why I did it.
The average class size at the private four-year colleges in Wisconsin is 16 students, so many of our students really appreciate that smaller size. They get to know their faculty members. There are not TAs, teaching assistants, at the private colleges because it's all faculty who have a terminal degree. They've gone as far as they can in their schooling. So it's just set up a little bit different than the public four-year universities, but that class size really allows a student to build a relationship with their faculty member. And again, that's an average size. Of course, there are a few larger size classes depending on the size of the particular college or university, but that's one of the biggest pluses that students talk about.
I think that within the UW system, our students would say that flexibility. Hypothetically, let's say you want to study abroad and the campus that you've chosen doesn't go to the country that your heart is set on going. Because we are a system, we can share study abroad programs. We can share some classes if things are kind of, there's a specific class that you really want. We can make sure that we get those things set up so that way it's transferring back to the campus that you want that degree from. So there's that flexibility within being a large system like we are.
Thank you. And those are important things we're asking our students to be thinking about. Not that one system is better than the other or that they're competing, but that we want our students to know all that they can know about the different systems so they find the best fit. So that's why we really like that question. The next question, because if students would choose a 2 or a 4-year school, is how will I know that this is the best fit for me? Typically, it's by taking a tour. And for families that have the firstborn child and they're starting to go off, there's a big question mark, and how do I schedule a tour? Do I need to schedule a tour? So could you speak to how our juniors, now we're almost midway through the year, how they would schedule a tour with any of your facilities, and when would be the best time that they should do that?
So I'm sure many of you have already been on NTC's campus and you've seen it through different things you've done already in high school, maybe even 8th grade. But taking that individual tour gives you a better chance to see the campus, and you're probably going to pay more attention. Because I remember when I would go on group tours, I was mostly messing around with my friends and I was not like in the game at all. But the best way for you to do that is either contact me. So I'm your designated career coach. I'm here once a month. So you could either contact me directly and I'll probably be the one to give your tour anyway. Or if you're right on the website, just ntc.edu, you scroll down, you'll see apply now, request information, and visit campus. So it's pretty simple. It's right there. You just click on it, you fill out your information, and then I'm actually also the one that'll follow up with you to confirm your scheduling. But if I could add one quick piece of advice, no matter where you guys want to go, please not only tour that college campus, please tour the city, because chances are you're going to spend some time there in between semesters or in between years, and probably for a year or so afterwards.
And Reva, when would they do that? When would be the best time to do that, typically, that you see them? Now, sometime during their junior year, summer of junior, at the end of their junior year?
I'd say do it between Christmas and probably fall over summer, because you're going to have some free time. The earlier you do it, the better, in case you change your mind. That's always best.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really appreciate what Raven said about, the visits are so important. And it can sometimes be the deal breaker or the decision maker for you when you go to, you've maybe applied to 3 different colleges and you're thinking, gee, what's going to feel right? What's going to be the best fit for me? So that visit can often do it. For the private colleges and universities, each of them have their own admissions office, of course, so you can contact their admissions offices. I've got information on the table of information, the phone numbers for all of the 24 colleges and universities. So they each have different set open house days or open visit days, but you can easily call and request a tour Monday through Friday. They're happy to talk with you. They really want to show you what they have to offer. For juniors, Wisconsin Private Colleges does offer a week-long event in July. It'll be the second week in July of 2019, when all of these colleges kind of they roll out the red carpet and do things at the same time during that week. So families, for instance, if you're vacationing or you're taking a road trip through Wisconsin, you can kind of stop in at as many of these colleges that you like. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it any other time. So we really encourage people to just make that phone call, set up a tour, or go on one of those group tour dates, and you can come by and see me at the table for that info.
So for the UW system, it'll also be very similar. Each college is going to have their own visit days. Most of the campuses also have daily visits Monday through Friday. Many of the campuses as well also doing 2 visits on Fridays, because we know that you maybe want to have a little bit more flexibility within that. My biggest piece of advice within that, though, would be to look at some of those bigger open houses. So many of the campuses now are switching to maybe a STEM-focused day. So if you're thinking about going into the STEM fields, you really get to dive into, okay, this is the building that I'm going to be conducting research in. This is what our students are the students at this university are currently doing, so that you get that feel as well, and still, again, doing that now. But another thing that I would say is actually visit multiple times when you are making that final decision. Many times, I'm going to tell you right now, senioritis is real, and it's going to sink in real fast if it hasn't already. Where you've got that eye on the prize, I know you're juniors, I know you're sitting here thinking, okay, I can just walk across the stage, I am so ready for this. But in your senior year, I encourage you to go to what many campuses as well within the UW system are doing now, is an admitted student day. That is a day where you get to be the student. You get to dive into the campus, you get to meet the clubs and the organizations. Many of the campuses are throwing different bus tours together of the city as well, because that is such a big piece. So that way, you get to dive into that then again your senior year, and you all of a sudden go, okay, yes, I made the best decision for myself. So I encourage you, start visiting now as a junior, kind of weigh out the options of where you want to apply, and then visit again within your senior year, so that way you go back to that campus and you're like, okay, yes, this is it. This is where I want to be.
Thank you. And so the best way to set up those tours is to call the individual facilities and say, do you have any scheduled tours? Can we set up a tour and go that way? Correct?
Yep, and then otherwise visiting right online and creating a profile on any of the websites as well.
On the school's website. Okay, thank you. And so we have one more question, which is really a big piece if you're choosing any of these options here, is what is the application process? What are the steps that need to be taken, and typically what is the timeline once I decide maybe my top 2 or 3 places that I might want to attend? So if you could speak to the application process for your system, that would be great.
So for any of the 16 technical colleges, you typically will let you start applying in April as a junior. And the reason to apply early, so some of you might think it's a little crazy to apply early, I know I for sure did. But there's a lot of programs that fill quickly, that if you get that application in on time, you have a designated spot on that list until you tell us, no, I don't want to attend anymore. That's why it's important. So you would start by applying, and from there you would send us a copy of your unofficial high school transcripts, and that's for any tech college. And it can be from your junior year, and as long as, I know NTC specifically, if you have a 2.5 GPA or higher, you have a spot in that program already. So it's pretty simple that way. Yes. We do paper applications too. That'll go to any tech college.
Okay, so the applications for the technical college are found online at that school site, and they can start applying anytime after,
I want to say it's like April 24th.
okay, of their junior year.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Little more complicated, or different, I should say, with the private colleges, because they are each their own independent entity. They're not, we call ourselves a system, but we're a little more loosely based. So that means that Beloit College might have a different deadline for their applications than Marquette or than Viterbo. So another plug for the guide that I have, but also information that's found online at wisconsinprivatecolleges.org is information on what those deadlines all are for applications to these various colleges and universities. Then, and that typically happens, I'm trying to remember the earliest application, but not as early as April, but in the summertime, you can apply as a recently completed junior, again, depending on the college. What's nice about the private colleges in Wisconsin too is that because they're smaller colleges in most cases, you can apply to the colleges, be accepted, and you don't have to apply to, let's say you want to go into nursing, for instance, you're not going to need to apply once you're a student into the nursing school, which can sometimes happen at the bigger institutions in the state. So this direct admit option is really kind of nice for certain students. And all the information on requirements, application fees, GPA, all that good stuff is in the guide and online. And some of the colleges do have a small fee to apply, but the majority now are going, no application fee necessary, which is great. Some of them use the common application, and then others don't require any test scores. So it all depends on the particular college or university that you're picking in the private college system.
And then for the UW system, it will open up every year on August 1st. So that is when the application will open up. It'll be the UW system application, and then there are 3 campuses, UW-Madison, UW-Stevens Point, and I forgot who just joined. I think it's Eau Claire did join the Common App. And so if you are many students who may be looking out of state, this may be the way that you want to apply, because many out-of-state schools will go and use the common application. So if you're also still looking at any of those 3 schools within the UW system, then that's when you're going to be able to use that application. Otherwise, just use the UW system application. The UW system application, it will carry over most of your personal information from campus to campus. So if you're applying to multiple UW system schools, you'll be able to go and just have all of your information over. The things that you'll have to start over will be things like your major, and then personal statements and things like that are things that won't carry over. But when you are applying to the UW system as well, there is an application fee of $50 for all of the UW system schools. UW-Madison right now is at $60, and they've been talking about bumping it up to $70 for next year. So just keep an eye on that, as well as you're going and taking a look at where you're applying. But for each school, even though it's one app, you are still going to pay $50 for each school that you are applying to. Many of the schools that have a new 2-year campus attached to them are switching to, if you're applying to, say, okay, you're applying to UW Stevens Point at Wausau and you're applying to UW Stevens Point, it is 2 applications but 1 fee. So you're not paying $100 to apply to the same campus in that essence. With that as well, you will be submitting your high school transcript, and then you will be submitting your ACT. Now, UW Eau Claire, UW Green Bay, UW La Crosse, and UW Madison require that the ACT score is sent directly from ACT. All of the other schools throughout the system can accept DC Everest sending them the test score. So when you go and you're thinking about which schools you want your ACT to be sent to this spring, when you're jotting those down, if you're thinking about those schools that specifically need it sent from ACT, make sure that you put them down so that that score goes directly from, and then from there, DC Everest can send them to the other schools as well. One other thing within the UW system is that once you are admitted, we do have a deposit as well, which for most of the schools is $100, and that $100 application fee is refundable up until May 1st. So that will be another piece that comes after to hold your spot in the freshman class of the university that you are looking to go into. And all of those are also found online. You can pick up paper applications as well, and then the UW system application, we've also restructured it so you can apply right on your phone as well.
It's pretty simple. Yep, thank you. A couple of things that you mentioned all across the board is we want our students to understand and know what the admission criteria is. What kind of GPA do I need to present? What kind of ACT score do I have to have in order to be considered to be admitted to any of these institutions? That would be found on their website. So that's where your child should be going and checking out. The other question that we get a lot is sending the transcripts. And so most of these institutions do want an official transcript sent, an official DC Everest transcript. The way that students do that is on our website. They will just click on the left-hand side of our main page, scroll down just a quarter of a page, there's a little black box that says send my transcript. Students will click on that. That will take them to a Parchment platform. Parchment is the business then that goes ahead after the student sets up an account and gives permission for us to release the transcript to the schools that they designate. So the counselors don't send it. In fact, most of the schools want it sent through a secured site, which is found on Parchment on our DC Everest homepage, high school homepage. And Rose will talk in just a little bit about how you send those official ACT scores, because that's another thing where you have to set up an account through ACT, not through the school, and those get sent then to the schools that require official ACT scores. If the admission says unofficial, then certainly that's included on your child's transcript and is covered when you send that through Parchment. Okay? That kind of concludes our panel discussion, our big things. These ladies will be available out in the commons afterwards when we transition at that 7:30 time. So I'm going to ask them for a round of applause for them, and they can exit stage right. Wonderful. And then that brings up next Sharon Hunter, who is probably the most knowledgeable person about the FAFSA. So first you're making the choice about the 2-year, 4-year, private, public, but then you have to figure out, how do I pay for this? And Sharon is going to help you understand that a little bit. And I think we're okay if we leave these up here. Are the tables blocking anybody's view? We're okay. Okay. All right, so I'll turn that over to Sharon for a little bit about financial aid process.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm going to stand over here so I can move the slides ahead, okay? So as Ms. Devine said, it's now time to think about how you're going to pay for this. College is an exciting time. It's also a scary time for students and parents. So when you think about college, we have to think about what it costs. And when you're looking at colleges, we know every school has a different cost. But when we're thinking about applying for financial aid, they may include costs in their budget that you may not think about. So when you're talking to college admission people, make sure you ask them, what are they including in that cost? So when you're looking at financial aid, these are all the things they build into their budget. Obviously tuition, they build in room and board, which means living on campus, living off campus, even living at home with parents. Transportation, is the student going to drive back and forth to school? Are they going far away that they may need airplane transportation to come home once in a while? It doesn't include car payments or car insurance though. And then we have books and supplies. So when you're looking at colleges, ask them, do I have to buy my books? Do I have to rent my books? Because that can be an additional cost. And then we have miscellaneous living expenses. So that's some spending money for the student. So again, when the financial aid office looks at the cost of attendance, they include all of these things. And we call that the cost of attendance. So when we're looking at costs, there are certain costs, obviously you're going to pay directly to the school. And you may not have any choice in terms of what those costs are. For example, tuition and fees. The only option you have is how many credits you take. Are you going to be a part-time student, 3/4 time student, or a full-time student? That will have a different tuition cost. And then we have room and board, and as I mentioned, are you going to live on campus? Are you required to live on campus? Can you live off campus? Or maybe you can live at home and commute. So those costs you have no really fluctuation with. Then we have the indirect costs that are built into that cost of attendance. And sometimes you can kind of play around with this to see if it's more affordable to go to that college. So some things may be like, can you rent your books, or can you buy your books on Amazon or something like that? Can you take out a different cell phone plan so it's not so costly? Your car expenses, those are all kinds of things that maybe you have more control over because you can have different options. So just remember, the direct costs you owe directly to the college, those indirect costs are in your control. So how can people pay for college? Well, obviously mom or dad could pay for it, right? Or the student could save money and pay for it, or there's savings sometimes, but the majority of students do rely on financial aid. So what does financial aid really entail? Well, there's this website called FAFSA.gov, and so next year, in your senior year, after October 1st, you can apply for financial aid, and you're going to go to the website called FAFSA.gov. You never, ever should ever pay to file a FAFSA. It is free. That's why it stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. There is a new mobile app now that you can download on your phone, and you can apply for financial aid on your phone if you like. So that's new this year. So become familiar with this website, FAFSA.gov, and that's how you're going to start applying for financial aid after October 1st of 2019. And the income and information that you use on that form will come from 2018 information. One thing that all families are going to need is an FSA ID. And this is your electronic signature to sign your financial aid form, and you'll use this FSA ID for other purposes for college. And a student and a parent will need to get this FSA ID. Parents, if you have an FSA ID already because you have a child in college, or maybe you were in college, you will continue to use that same FSA ID. You can actually set that up if you'd like tonight. Just remember how you set it up, the password, the username, all of your challenge questions, because you will need to use this over and over and over again. The student, if you set this up, please do not use your high school email address, okay? You should use your personal address because you're going to use this while you're in college, and you may not have your school email address once you graduate from high school. So you're going to use it to fill out your FAFSA. You're going to use it when you renew your FAFSA every year, because you have to reapply for financial aid every year. If you take out the student loans, the student will use it to take out the student loans. And this is the website that you can apply for the FSA ID, or just go to FAFSA.gov and it will direct you to the FSA ID site. So this number becomes very, very important. It's your identification number, and it's for security purposes for the financial aid form. So the next question I get a lot from is, parents, do I have to put my information on this FAFSA? They always ask me. Well, in the majority of the cases for high school seniors, yes, parent information is needed. There are some situations where a parent may not be able to provide this information for the student, but that's usually the exception. So parents, when we look at parent information, if mom and dad are married, parents are married, if the student is adopted, or if mom and dad are not married and are living together, they would have to use both parents' information on that student's financial aid form. If mom and dad are divorced or separated, then the student would use the parent information with who they live with the most. It's not who claims the child, it's who the student lives with the most. Now, if that parent happens to be remarried, then you would also have to use the step-parent's information. So if the student is living with a legal guardian or with grandparents for some reason, or other relatives, or they are in foster care, they would not use parent information. That would be the exception, where they would only use the student's information on the FAFSA. So, why are you filling out that financial aid form, that FAFSA? Well, what happens is when you fill this out, you put in a whole bunch of information about yourself and your income. And they come up with this index number, and we call it the expected family contribution. And this is a number that the college uses to determine if you're going to get financial aid. It doesn't mean that's the amount of money you're going to owe the college to help pay for your son or daughter's education. It's just an index number. And you can list up to 10 colleges on your FAFSA. So even though you may not know where you're applying, we hope by your senior year you will know where you're applying, but even if you're just thinking of schools, you can list them. However, you won't know if you're going to get financial aid unless you do apply to that college and be accepted. Now, the EFC is a unique index number. And so what happens is when the college gets that number from the FAFSA processing agency, they subtract it from their cost of attendance, and they come up with what we call financial need. How much money do you need in financial aid? And you're going to notice on this slide, you see that EFC number for this student is $3,500. It doesn't change. The cost of the college changes though, right? So we have School 1, which is like a private college. We have School 2, that's like our UW system. And we have School 3, that's like our technical college. So the EFC stays the same no matter what the cost of the college is. So the financial need changes for the student. And then it is up to the college to determine how are they going to meet that need. And that's what they look at then to see what kind of financial aid you would be eligible for. So when we use the term financial aid, it includes 4 things. It includes grants, loans, some scholarships, and then the college work-study program. So grants come from the federal government, from the state government, and then from the colleges itself. So you're applying for all of those things when you fill out the FAFSA. And I'm not going to go into the different types of grants that you would be considered for, but I just want to mention with the state grant does not go out of state. So if you're thinking about applying to an out-of-state school, you could not be considered for a Wisconsin state grant, okay? It will not go with you. Federal grants apply to any school in the United States that is an eligible institution. And then institutional grants is money that some of the colleges raise to offer their students to make it more affordable for the student to come to their college. Loans, obviously, you have to repay. There are some scholarships that are based on financial need. Now, you're going to hear about some other scholarships tonight that aren't based on need. But these are just unique scholarships that you do have to fill out the FAFSA and be eligible for financial aid. And then we have the college work-study program, which is a job on campus. So every college, on their website, they have a student employment page. You can go there and see the jobs that are eligible for work-study. There are also jobs that a student doesn't have to be eligible for work-study. And if the student doesn't receive work-study, they can always apply for those other opportunities. But a work-study job, a student does get a paycheck. They do have to apply for it. And they do have to be eligible for financial aid. So those are the different types of financial aid that you are being considered for when you fill out that FAFSA. I'm going to talk a little bit about loans because we hear a lot about student loans in the newspaper from the media about how much money students are getting in debt. This is available to students. There are 2 ways that students can take out the loan. There's the subsidized loan and the unsubsidized loan, and this is taken out through the college. It is not taken out through a lending institution. Subsidized means the government pays the interest all the while the student is in college. So virtually it's free money till that student is through with school and then they start repaying their loan. The unsubsidized loan means the student does have to pay the interest while they're in college, and it will accrue on that student's account. So you just need to be aware of that when the college offers you those funds. Is it subsidized or unsubsidized? The other thing about this is a student doesn't have to go through a credit check for this. And also the interest rates are usually lower than borrowing through a lending institution. And mom and dad do not have to co-sign this loan. It's in the student's name, and the student is responsible for repaying it. These are the loan limits. Every student who goes to college and is a full-time student is eligible for this loan. As a freshman, they can borrow $5,500. As a sophomore, it's $6,500. As a junior, it's $7,500. Their senior year, it's $7,500. And then their 5th year, senior year, it's another $7,500. And then if they go on to graduate school or professional school, there are other direct student loans that the student could apply for. A student in college right now, the interest rate is 5.045%. It changes every July 1st. So you'll be starting college in September of 2020. So you would need to check July of 2020 to see what that interest rate will be. But it's been averaging around 5% for several years. And again, I want to emphasize a parent does not co-sign this loan. There are other loans available. Parents, there's a PLUS loan that is available to you. Again, you would borrow this through the college. The interest rate on this right now is 7.595%. Again, it changes on July 1st. You can borrow up to the cost of attendance. The college does require you to fill out the FAFSA to be considered for it, but remember it is in your name, and you are responsible for repaying it, and that a credit check is done. And then obviously there are other loans that you can take out through a lending institution. So if you're interested in loans, you can also check with your bank or your credit union. So how do you get financial aid? Well, obviously you have to complete that FAFSA. You're going to complete it after October 1st of 2019, and you have to reapply for financial aid every year. It's not automatically, you're not automatically considered for it because you did it once. How do you know if you're going to get financial aid? So next year, after October 1st, when you fill out that FAFSA, when you fill it out, you're automatically going to get something called a confirmation page, and that will tell you right away what that expected family contribution is. And then after that, you'll get something called a student aid report, like 24 hours later. There's a process called verification that you may get selected for, and what that means is you get to do a little more paperwork for the college, and then the student will be emailed what's called a financial aid notification, which will be a breakdown of all the money that the student would be eligible for. And again, you can list up to 10 colleges, but you do have to apply and be accepted before you would be notified if you're getting financial aid, okay? So that's how it works. Now, right now, if you're curious about some colleges and you're interested in getting an estimate about financial aid, all of the colleges have what we call the net price calculator. So you can go to each of the college's website and just type in net price calculator, and you'll go through a formula. They'll ask you some questions about your income, size of household, how many people are in the college, and they will actually give you an estimate of what they feel you would be qualified for going to that college. But just remember, it is an estimate, and you do have to apply for financial aid after October 1st of 2019 using the FAFSA. But this is a great way to do some college shopping, so you can do comparisons and see if you really want to even apply to that school. There is another forecaster for you. It's called the FAFSA Forecaster. Again, if you type in FAFSA.gov, you can Google that, and it's the same type of thing that the net price calculator is. So those are they're really kind of fun to do, just to go through and see what you might be eligible for. So what can students do now? Well, obviously, you need to make sure you're on track to graduate. You do that with your counselors. Make sure you're taking the right courses. All of the colleges have websites. You can check to make sure you have the right math or whatever, how many years of English, all those things that you need to be admitted. Keep your grades up. We heard a little bit about senioritis. We know students sometimes slack off their junior or senior year. You can't do that. You gotta keep your grades up. And then take that ACT test, which is a statewide test, which you'll take, and you're going to talk about that a little later? Yep, okay. And also, you heard about visiting the colleges. That's so, so important to see that college and view it and meet with the professors and the students on campus. Apply for admission next fall. Complete that FAFSA in October 2019. If you need help filling out that FAFSA, we have an event at North Central Technical College every October where you actually can come and fill out the FAFSA. We have people there who can answer your questions, so you can submit it right away. And then be on the look for scholarships. And DC Everest, I admire the scholarship process that you have here. I talk to a lot of students at a lot of local high schools, and this is an exceptional scholarship program. So you're very fortunate to have students going to Everest here. So this is my information. I'm located at UW-Stevens Point at Wausau. I have an office there, so you can contact me there, or you can just send an email to collegegowisconsin@gmail.com, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. But also know that the financial aid offices at any college will answer your questions. You don't have to be applying there or going there. They want to make sure that you have all the information you need to make good decisions about where you want to go to college. And with that, I'll turn it over to you.
I want a round of applause to get you moving too for sharing. She is a wealth of knowledge. She always reminds me about the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loans. I always kind of forget that, but I remember when you bring that up. So, Sharon, also in the senior year, we will partner with West and East families, and she comes in and does another more in-depth workshop, so to speak, about an hour and a half specifically on the FAFSA. That's typically around the middle of October in the senior year, and then there are those specific workshops through College Goal at NTC where you bring all of your financial documents to NTC, and there are admissions people there who will actually help you complete the FAFSA, and you'll leave with it done. And we will advertise that for our seniors when they get to that point too. So two other ways to help pay for college, when we're getting close to wrapping our time up here. One is you might consider military, and we have representatives from many of the branches outside in the Commons, so feel free to stop by those tables if your child is thinking about maybe using military to help pay for educational opportunities. Sharon was very kind in speaking about the scholarship programs that we do have here. On the back, or let me see, not on the back of the agenda, it looks like this. We have a scholarship checklist that we put together for what juniors can do, and then specifically what seniors should be looking to do. The junior year is really about building the resume, keeping the grades up, good ACT, taking the right classes, the volunteer work, the service work, the leadership experiences, that all when the students actually go in their senior year to apply, they've got as rich or deep resume so that they can compete with others that are competing for the same scholarship. So there's no specific application process for juniors for scholarships. That actually all happens in the senior year, and that is all listed on the back of that one worksheet there. So I'm not going to read that to you, but just kind of, you'll know where the sources are. This year, or last year's seniors, when we did our local scholarship program, which is mostly local businesses within Marathon County, but I also do have to include our academic excellence scholarships, and we had some Herb Cole scholarship winners. We awarded probably about over $200,000, and that included probably about 115 students in the senior class, and that was just local money plus the Herb Cole and the academic excellence. So every little bit when you're paying for college helps. So the next big thing for our juniors is ACT, because ACT test scores are part of that admission process. So we're going to have Rose talk a little bit about how that works for our juniors, and also how to get into an account when they need to send their scores to colleges they're interested in.
Thank you, Jody. So I provided a handout for you back at the table, and as you know, in the last couple of years, the ACT, the state of Wisconsin has adopted the ACT as their state test. So the good news is that all of your sons and daughters here will be taking a free ACT for our state test here. And the test date I've got on the bottom of the handout will be Wednesday, February 20th of 2019. We will be providing students with preparation information. So every student will get a paper pencil practice test. So it's a nice booklet that they will bring home, and there's instructions in there for the parents as to how to kind of set up a test prep at home, setting the kitchen timer and going through the tests, and how to eliminate distractions. And that's a really good model or practice as to what test day will be like. In all of the classes here that pertain to the ACT test, for instance, science and reading, they'll be doing some practice questions in the curriculum areas up to that time. And in January, you will get a letter sent home kind of outlining some additional prep opportunities here at the high school that will run a couple weeks prior to the test. So that's the state test, and that will be the ACT with writing. Now, most students decide to take more than one test. And as you heard from some of the previous speakers, the ACT is an admissions test to get into all of the colleges that were up here today. And for some of them, specific with the privates, the higher your score, the more likely you are to receive scholarship opportunities. So for the students here, do your best on that test. Take advantage of those practice opportunities, and also consider to take an additional test besides the state test. And so what I have on the handout here are the national test dates in addition to that state test that students will do here in February. At DC Everest, we provide 3 additional test dates, the national test dates, and those would be June, so following the March test, your son or daughter could sign up for a June test here. They could sign up for a September test in the fall, and then at the very latest, a December test. So I would, there are other test dates on here, so for an example, if a junior in here wanted to take a February test, they could sign up to take a February test prior to the late February test. There's a national February test date, and then there's our state test date. We do not host the February national test date, but you may find a school in the area that would provide that. So you have a couple options. Typically our students will take the state test here, and then they would probably sign up for the June test if that works out in the schedule, and then look for other opportunities. So if you get that first score and you're really happy with it, great, but if you decide you want to take an additional one to maybe pull the points up a little bit, that's an option for you. Okay, I'm just looking here. One of the things I want to point out, and it was brought up with the other speakers, on our Black Friday, and the students in here know what Black Friday is. It's our ACP Day. In February, that's going to be designated for you to fill out your demographics for the ACT test, the state test that I'm talking about. So it's a good idea to mingle out here this evening, and take a look at colleges you might be interested in, because you'll have up to 4 colleges that you can designate on that demographics form to have your ACT scores sent to for free. If you decide at a later date that you want to apply to a different college and it requires an official ACT score, that can cost you money later on. So remember, when you're registering for an ACT, you can put up to 4 colleges that you can have your scores sent to for free, so that they'll receive those scores if you intend to apply there. So I think I covered everything about prep, state testing, and what's going to be happening with that. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, as we transition out into the Commons area now, we have this presentation taped tonight, and we intend to put it on our senior high website under our student services link. So if you want to revisit any part of this presentation tonight, or someone missed the opportunity to come, you can direct them to that. And we will also follow up by sending you an email just to get some feedback from you as to how you like the new format that we've set up this year for you. So I appreciate your time tonight, and we would like to welcome you into our Commons to visit with the rest of our representatives that are here to answer any personal questions that you have. Thank you.